Rejection of the truth, Jesus is Lord.
God is an all-consuming fire, burning away all false desires.
Yeah, he's gonna burn it away. The holy furnace
Hello,
of
brothers and
blaze.
sisters. I come to you today to warn you about the danger of philosophy in every way, shape, or form. Please do not take those classes. Please run from such things. It's on the world. Have you ever heard that kind of thinking? I have. In conservative circles, they talk like that a lot. They get outraged at the very idea that some theologians of old have used philosophers and their philosophies, their way of reasoning and logic, to make sense of theology. That shouldn't be. Paul told us not to do that. They're probably referring to Colossians chapter 2, verse 8. And what we're going to do is actually read the verse in its entirety. We don't need to go much further than that to get the full context. By just reading the verse itself, we'll see that maybe they misunderstood what Paul was getting at when he said to stay away from philosophy. So he starts by saying, see to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ. Well, there you see, Martin. It says, don't listen to philosophy because it comes from human tradition. Therefore, forget those philosophers of old. Stop. Be careful. Because he doesn't just say philosophy and their human traditions. He talks about elemental spirits of the world. And they're not going to Christ. Now, in the verse, you're seeing that this philosophy, this real call of Paul is to not be captive by the philosophy and empty deceit, which is according to human tradition, and according to elemental spirits, and not according to Christ. So there's a lot of stuff connected to what is Paul talking about. What is this thing that can capture us? What are the many teeth on this trap? It's not just philosophy. It has empty deceit in it, and yes, human tradition, but also elemental spirits. What is that? Well, most probably it's referring to anything that has to do with esoteric or magical or any kind of witchcraft, any kind of the four elements that you could be able to take from, like fire and wind, and all the elemental spirits that are controlling the universe, and that kind of magical thing, which Gnostic teaching would talk about. All of this is not focused on Christ. That's also important. Now, one more thing that I would add to this before we try to conclude what is Paul saying is that in the Greek, and I know I usually don't do this, but in the Greek, Paul actually says by the philosophy. And that's important because a bit like in English, you can talk about general philosophy itself or one specific philosophy if you use the or if you don't use it. Right? If you put the pronoun or not. Well, Paul does put a pronoun in Greek. He does talk about don't be captive by the philosophy and into deceit. And this philosophy specific that I'm mentioning is according to human traditions and the elemental spirits. What is this philosophy then that Paul is referring to? Gnosticism. And like I said, probably Gnostic, Jewish Gnosticism. But for that, you'd have to see the series I'm doing in Colossians. My point is, Paul was warning about a specific danger here that wasn't according to Christ. Now, can we make a more general principle? Yes. If it's not pointing us back to the Bible and to Christ, then we should stay away. But to denigrate the very idea of philosophy itself, well, it means you don't understand what philosophy means. It's through the love of wisdom. That's literally what the word philosophy means. It's to love wisdom. Wisdom, which is the applied knowledge, which is how you reason and you live out your life. And how you come to this reasoning needs to include the Word of God. But it also needs your thinking process. Philosophy in itself is not wrong. It just depends how you use it. Because it's all about thinking, logic, reasoning. Those things we do need. From that, we can get some good theology. But my point here is we shouldn't be so quick to throw out the baby with the bathwater from what Paul is saying here. And that goes for any context, actually. We are too quick to throw away the baby with the bathwater. Too quick to reject anything that's from the world because, well, the Bible tells us to stay away from the world. Well, not exactly. It tells us to stay away from the things that are in the world, which is all about the flesh and yourself and, of course, following the devil. Yeah, stay away from that. But does that mean that God is not at work through all of that? Of course he is. And one good example is medicine. The Bible doesn't teach about medicine. And many times throughout history, people who were too stubborn and too really adamant about certain things of the Bible did not want to continue their progress in medicine because, well, you can't look at nudity, so you can't look at a dead corpse. You can't work on a corpse and try to figure out what happened to him, and other kinds of reasoning. The point is that because they've pushed further in medicine, which the Bible doesn't talk about, we have a lot of stuff right now that's helping us. So there's good and bad in medicine, and yet it's of the world in a sense. The Bible didn't teach on that. But you're probably grateful that you have it. Same thing for medicine itself. Many people will point to the word pharmakia, which is seen in Galatians, as part of the works of the flesh, and say anything that's medicine, pharmakia, anything that affects your body is automatically evil because of that passage. Well, I'm grateful to have aspirin. And some people are helped by certain drugs that impact their mind in certain ways. So we shouldn't be so quick to just throw out the baby with the bathwater. We need that logic and reasoning. So, with that said, brothers and sisters, be blessed.
Turn of the day, somebody come on.
They're lowering the mountains and rocks